Weaver here, who's not related to me, by the way, even though he's a nice guy. But I would appreciate it if you all would do two things. First of all, when you vote all the way down the ballot. The judicial candidates are at the bottom. And a lot of times people don't vote for judicial candidates because they just don't know who they are. There isn't an R or a D next to our names, and it's difficult to make a decision. You're here tonight, I am sure you're all going to vote. I have no doubt in my mind about that. But tell your friends and family to make sure they vote down the ballot and make an informed decision. Now the other thing is it's difficult to remember candidates' names. And tonight I will give credit where credit is due. Those of you who have seen my signs have seen that silly little slogan, "Leave it to Weaver." The person who came up with that is Judge Bartolotti. We were talking about it in 2002 when I was running for probate judge, and I have to give him credit for it because it works. So in December, remember, leave it to Weaver. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay, our next candidate is John O'Donnell, running for Common Pleas Court, General Division.
First of all, thanks to the coalition for putting this event on, and thanks for all of you folks for showing up here tonight. It's very important what's going on here, and as Kim knows all too well, 49 days from now is the vote. A couple of things before I really get started. Chuck mentioned that John P. O'Donnell from Cuyahoga is running for the Supreme Court. I was in the Willoughby Hills Senior Center, spoke to about 30 folks this morning, and one of the things I talk about when I go wherever I go, I was in Fairport Senior Center last week, I said, you know, please, 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 there's another guy impersonating me with my name on the ballot, but he's way up here, as Jeff touched on. He's up on the ballot up here, I'm down near the bottom. So I indicated to them it's very important that you go through all the way down to the ballot because the judges are last and then the issues are after the judges. So please remember that I try to tell folks that you're going to miss my race. If you see my name, you vote for that person for the Supreme Court and then end it at that. But to touch on a little bit about what Jeff said, and this was a topic at the West End Chamber of Commerce candidates luncheon last Monday, which we were all at. There were 33 speakers at that thing. And Tom Leston, who's running for the Supreme Court against Justice Kennedy, got up and spoke, and he noted, and he was right, when that luncheon started, there were probably 250 people in the room. By the time we got that far down, an hour and a half later, when the judges started to talk, the room was about half full. And that's kind of how it is on the ballot. People go up at the top, they see the congressman, they go down to the state races, they go down to the judges' races, and things just fall off. So it's important, and I know it won't happen with you folks when you vote, but it's important to tell folks that to go all the way down the ballot. Another reason why I think that a lot of people leave the judges' races blank is because they don't know who they're voting for. And I've made a concerted effort. I filed my petitions last September 26th. I had decided in 10 days after the general election in 12 that I was going to run for this spot. There was the death of Judge Clammer that kind of interrupted things for about 6 months, which was way too long. But after that, I filed my petitions and began this concerted effort to win this spot. And I'm doing that by trying to get to as many individuals and as many groups as I can because they don't know me. I've been practicing in this county for 27 years. But a very small percentage of the people know me. So I've tried to get out and tell folks who I am, what I'm about. And just so you know, I grew up in Wickliffe. 25 years ago, I moved to Willowick. And does anybody know what a cabin restaurant is? Joe?
Yeah.
Everybody knows what a cabin restaurant is. I've lived down the street from there for the last 25 years. I've been married 28 years to my wife, Nancy. We've got 4 kids. 27-year-old daughter's an attorney. 25-year-old son's a machinist. My 23-year-old daughter's got 1 year of graduate school left at Ohio State. She'll be an occupational therapist. And my 22-year-old son just graduated from John Carroll University, went to the police academy, took the test, the state test today, and I'm pretty positive he's going to pass and become a police officer. As Jeff started out, he stated a little bit earlier, I started out in the Lake County Prosecutor's Office. When Lott Durrett got elected, I was hired. I prosecuted felony criminal cases for about 2.5 years. In that time, that's when the Kirtland cult murders happened. While I did not do any of the trials, there were a couple of the defendants in that case that I had prosecuted. After that, I left in mid-1991. I went into private practice. I went with the firm of Joe Gibson in Cleveland. He is now the judge that is providing this open seat by his retirement. After I left there in '96, I came back into Lake County, established a practice here, practiced with another gentleman in Painesville for 12 years, and then opened my own practice in Willoughby. About 3 years ago, I went back to the prosecutor's office. Although I maintained my private practice, I went back as the head of the civil division, and the civil division represents all the elected officials in Lake County. That's the statutory charge of the prosecutor. But I got a little sidetracked. About 3 months ago, there was a murder that occurred. Well, the trial occurred. The murder occurred in November of 12. And you may remember it. A fellow was indicted for conspiring with his foster daughter to kill his wife, and she stabbed her foster mother to death. And I was one of the prosecutors that was on that trial that convicted Kevin Knaefel, who's now serving a life term in prison. So that's a little bit about who I am. I'm also, in 1993, I ran for Willowick City Council against an incumbent, and I won that race, and those were 2-year terms at that time. And I won that race for one reason and one reason only. I hit every door in that ward over an 8-week period, and that's the only reason that I won, because I had only lived there 2 years, nobody knew me, and that's how they got to know me. I was reelected to five times after that, and then I resigned that position and became the law director immediately thereafter in Willowick for a period of about 6 years. Last January, I was reappointed to Willowick Council because there was a vacancy, and I remain there today. And just one last thing, I don't know if any of you know who I'm running against. When I talk to people, I get that question often: who's running against you? And I say very simply, I never say his name. And that elicits a little bit of a chuckle, and I say, and I pause, and I say, well, because I'm out here trying to earn your vote, and you don't know who he is, so I'm not going to help him out at all. So that's how I view things. I think my opponent, he was funded by his parents. They wrote him an $80,000 check, which he spent in the primary. And the word I hear is they're going to write him another $100,000 check for the general election. He's going to spend every bit of it, because what does he care? It's not his money. So I view this differently. I view this as a grassroots campaign, and I appreciate the help I've gotten from you folks in getting the literature out, because I certainly couldn't have done all that by myself, and Kim was absolutely right on that point. So with that, I'll leave you, and I'll be around to answer any questions that you have, and ask for your support on November 4th. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And last but not least is Mark Bartolotta, who is running for Common Pleas Court probate judge, and he is currently Judge Bartolotta.
Thank you. I am Mark Bartolotta, and I am your current Lake County Probate Court judge, and I've been there for about a year. And a lot of people might not know what probate court does, or what we do, what we're all about. We're a little different than what John's running for, and what Ron and Jeff are running for. We deal with a lot of end-of-life issues, estates, wills, trusts. We also, I handle all the marriages in the county, not performing them, but I issue all the marriage licenses in the county. Name changes, guardianships, which is a big part of what we do on a day-to-day basis for those folks who are incompetent, can't take care of themselves, can't take care of their affairs. That's where I come in and appoint guardians and make sure that those people are well protected. But a lot of the end-of-life issues are the things that people hear about the most. You know, taking care of estates, wills, making sure people's last wishes are abided with, and their property goes to where they hope it goes to, and we take care of those things. A little bit about my background. I, like Jeff and John, started off in the Lake County Prosecutor's Office many years ago. I was a prosecutor there for over 20 years. I started off in the civil division, much like John is now, representing all county agencies and elected officials, things of that nature. After the civil division, I went